It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Friday, May 9th. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by the Wyoming Community Foundation, who asks you to give back to the place you call home. 5 to Thrive is your opportunity to leave a legacy for generations to come. Support the community nonprofits you care about with a gift through the Wyoming Community Foundation. Visit wycf.org to learn more. When meeting with state legislators on Thursday, Wyoming Secretary of State Chuck Gray expressed strong support for nearly 24 election reform bills. The Legislative Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions Committee chose to take up less than half of them for study. But Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that doesn't guarantee all of them will be carried into the 2026 legislative session that starts February 9th.
Chuck Gray proposed 22 bills for the Corporations Committee to look at through the coming months ahead of the 2026 legislative session, and they took up 11 to study. That doesn't mean they'll champion them all, but that means they're going to look at things like random hand counts and photo ID only, and reforming the audits process and all of those things. They said that election reform is at the top of their interim priority list.
Individual legislators still can champion some of the bills that didn't reach the committee's threshold of interest. Catholics across Wyoming celebrated the appointment of the first American Pope on Thursday. Robert Francis Prevost, a Chicago-born cardinal, was chosen as the 267th Pope by the College of Cardinals after several rounds of voting that took more than a day. Cowboy State Daily's Justin George spoke to several members of the church, many of whom said they believe the selection of Prevost will bring greater attention to U.S. churches and potentially lure back lapsed members.
There's not a huge population of Catholics in Wyoming, but there is a significant one, and many of those are at universities, obviously student centers, and there are many Catholic schools that are out there. It was a huge day and a big day, like at St. Anthony's Tri-Parish Catholic School in Casper. The entire student body was in the Commons watching this. They all watched as the announcement came. It was spoken in Latin. Luckily, they have a Latin teacher there who could decipher exactly who was chosen. And then there was the added excitement that an American is being named the first pope.
The selection of Prevost came as a surprise to many inside and outside of the church who believed the United States' already outsized global influence might disqualify an American from holding the most influential position within the church of 1.4 billion people, including an estimated 69,500 people here in Wyoming. Landmark cryptocurrency legislation, one of the signature efforts of U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis, collapsed Thursday on the Senate floor despite exhaustive 11th-hour efforts by the Wyoming Republican and her GOP colleagues to rescue it. Before the vote, Lummis, who leads the Senate Banking Committee's sub-panel on digital assets, gave a floor speech thanking President Donald Trump for sharing her leadership on cryptocurrency regulation. But Cowboy State Daily's Sean Berry reports that some Democrats who originally supported the bill did an about-face, and Trump himself may have had a hand in the bill's demise.
This legislation, championed so long by Senator Cynthia Lummis, just crashes and burns on the Senate floor. And why? Well, there's a lot of finger-pointing, but President Trump did not do Cynthia Lummis any favors on this by being so involved, him and his family, with cryptocurrency. And so while this bill had bipartisan support in the beginning, it began to wane heavily and quickly. And this week it unraveled. And I'm shocked, frankly, that Senate Majority Leader John Thune took this thing to the floor. They were nowhere near getting the number of votes needed to advance it. And in fact, John Thune had to change his vote to vote against the bill just so he could be in the majority to make a motion to bring the bill back up at a later time.
It was not clear exactly Thursday how the latest version has changed since the committee vote in March. But in general, it calls for a massive framework to regulate stable coins, a type of cryptocurrency pegged to the U.S. dollar. It started with a tip. Someone in the small town of Woodruff, Utah, became suspicious about a semi-truck dumping what appeared to be wastewater into a pond-like area. Now, one Utah resident and one Wyomingite are being charged with 4 third-degree felonies for allegedly taking Wyoming oil field waste and unlawfully disposing of it in a bucolic corner of Utah just across the Wyoming state line. Cowboy State Daily's David Madison reports that 37-year-old Braden Corina and and 47-year-old Jeremy Oliver are facing 4 counts of unlawful discharge of pollutants.
A company based in Bear River hired a couple guys to follow the law and haul a bunch of oil field waste, liquid waste, it sounds like, to a facility in LaBarge. But instead of making that 108-mile trip up to LaBarge, they just went 14 miles to the northwest and into the beautiful community of Woodruff. And over a period of time in late 2023 and 2024, someone spotted them dumping something in a pond-like area. Someone called this tip in, the sheriff gets on it, state investigator gets on it. They end up charging 2 individuals with 4 counts each of third-degree felony polluting, essentially.
Special Agent Brent Kaza from the Trust Lands Administration said the sheer quantity of the pollution was beyond anything he's ever seen as an investigator. Wyoming's U.S. House Representative on Thursday announced her introduction of an act to keep student visas from being issued in sanctuary or anti-immigration enforcement jurisdictions. Representative Harriet Hageman cited a Center for Immigration Studies statistic estimating that around 10,000 serious foreign criminals who were deportable, and among whom there were felons, have been, quote, released back on the streets, many of them to the safety of sanctuary cities. That's according to Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland.
She's introduced a bill to ban student visas in areas that are considered sanctuary jurisdictions, meaning they don't work well with immigration officials. They have practices that keep them from working well with immigration officials. A immigration attorney was like, whoa, this definition she wants to use to put sanctuary jurisdiction in the law is vague, and it feels like maybe a sanctuary jurisdiction will be whatever the authorities say it is. She said it is a check on jurisdictions where lawbreakers can hide out.
Hageman says that pulling student visas is an accountability measure to pressure leaders in those areas to rid their cities of, quote, lawbreakers. And now let's take a look at today's weather with Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day.
I think everyone's going to really like the weather forecast over the next several days as high pressure builds in and as warm air from the desert states gets pushed into Wyoming. Temperatures are going to be very warm. Very warm May weather coming starting today and lasting probably into Monday and Tuesday. Now, late Tuesday into Wednesday will bring colder weather and better chances of showers and thunderstorms, especially in the northern part of Wyoming. When it comes to any precipitation, from today through Sunday, there might be a couple of isolated afternoon and evening thunderstorms, mainly near the mountains of the south and the west today. Not much thunderstorm activity Saturday, but we do expect thunderstorm activity to pick up a bit Mother's Day afternoon on Sunday. Nothing widespread, but showers and thunderstorms will be a bit more commonplace. The wind won't be much of a factor today or Saturday, but it will get a bit breezy, especially in western Wyoming on Sunday, as southwest winds will be picking up steam ahead of that next weather pattern change coming as we head into next week.
You can get Don's full forecast on the Cowboy State Daily website. I'll be back in just 15 seconds with more news.
Wyoming Relay provides telephone access for people with hearing loss and access for people with speech disabilities. We offer services and specialized equipment at no cost to you. No matter what your level of hearing loss or speech disability, Wyoming Relay can help.
A Florida man who was gored by a bison in Yellowstone National Park on Sunday but lived is lucky compared to other Floridians this week. Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that the 47-year-old from Cape Coral escaped from his encounter with the bison, but 2 others in their home state were not as fortunate. A man and his dog were killed by a bear in Collier County, Florida, and a woman from Davenport, Florida was attacked and killed by an alligator.
A woman who was in her early 60s was killed by an alligator on Tuesday. Her and her husband were in a canoe and it capsized, and she was subsequently fatally bitten by an alligator in the water there. And then I believe an 89-year-old man in southwest rural Florida was killed by a black bear. Him and his dog were killed by a black bear or bears. They're not sure.
The attack in Yellowstone was the first report of a human injured by wildlife in the park this year. A federal prosecutor on Wednesday voiced skepticism of a Wyoming woman's claims that her son stole her guns before fatally shooting a Sheridan police sergeant, then launching a 2-day standoff that culminated in his own shooting death in February 2024. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that Eileen Hurley faces 4 felonies in the U.S. District Court for Wyoming on allegations that she bought 3 guns for her son, 46-year-old William Lowry, who was a convicted felon and prohibited from having guns.
This is a big argument about whether the prosecution has to hand over data on 10 more guns, who owned them, where they came from, to the defense of Eileen Hurley. Basically, the prosecutor is saying, whoa, the government's theory is that she bought them for him or gave them to him. Her saying, oh, he stole them. Well, the prosecutor is basically saying, this looks like a new theory to us. And also, our evidence on these guns isn't material to you since no one reported them stolen.
Lowry went on to fatally shoot Sheridan Police Sergeant Nevada Krinke on February 13th, 2024. He hid in a local woman's house for nearly 2 days during a dramatic police standoff and was ultimately shot by law enforcement while trying to flee. Well, Rawlins residents are fed up with a colony of prairie dogs that's become more than a nuisance. Prairie dogs are disturbing the eternal peace of the dearly departed, digging into and around graves in the Rawlins Cemetery. And Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that locals are getting frustrated.
Wyoming is prairie dog habitat. There's just no denying that. So you're going to inevitably run into problems when you have human infrastructure in areas where prairie dogs like to live. And cemeteries are vast, flat areas that are ideal for prairie dogs. Rawlins Cemetery is filled with prairie dogs, and they're digging right in front of headstones. So it's within reason that they could reach far enough down to disturb the eternal peace of the dearly departed. And a lot of people are concerned about the damage that prairie dogs are causing, and they can cause injury, because if you step in one of those holes, they can go up to 10 feet down, and you can break a leg in one of them.
Ultimately, the best way to control the cemetery's prairie dog problem is an automatic death sentence. In Campbell County, the burrowing problem was only solved by poisoning the prairie dogs. While poisoning isn't the only solution, it is the most economical in terms of time and resources. And Cowboy State Daily this week is saying farewell to a longtime member of our reporting team and one of our busiest. Politics reporter Leo Wolfson is leaving our staff to move on to a new adventure.
I regretfully tell all you viewers out there, our loyal followers, that I will be moving into the PR communications space, taking at least a break for journalism. I'm going to be doing helping out with some of the PR communications for Charles Hoskinson, who runs a cryptocurrency company called Cardano. Hoskinson owns a ranch in Wheatland. He just recently opened a medical clinic in Gillette, and he's just trying to get a lot more involved with kind of Wyoming communities. So I'm going to be helping with those efforts. I'm also going to be joining a team that involves former Deputy Secretary of State Karen Wheeler with that. And yeah, very excited. It's a whole new experience. We'll see how it goes. It's just a really good opportunity to kind of spread my wings and see how I like it. And I'm going to miss it a lot. I'm going to miss talking to all you people out there and all my coworkers at Cowboy State Daily. It's a hard decision. It's certainly not without some sadness, but it's been a wonderful time, and I've loved working with you, Wendy.
I agree. It has been such a gift to be able to have this, because when we first met, of course, we were doing different media in Cody. And so pleased that we've had these last 3 years to work together. It's been an absolute joy. Any final thoughts about your years here?
What I've really enjoyed most was kind of the Super Bowl of my beat, is what kind of we described it as. Covering the legislature was by far my favorite part. Look forward to it all year round. I was very excited when it was going on. Certainly was about ready for it to be done by the time it was done every year. It was quite the grind. Just, it's nonstop, just like it is for anybody that works there. And but it was really, truly a lot of fun, a lot enjoyable. Made a lot of friends there that I wouldn't have made otherwise. I really became a lot closer with the Wyoming press corps, which was a fun experience to just kind of get to know a lot of those people from around the state as well. And I think our culture here is just so wonderful in Wyoming. I mean, it's so easy to meet and talk to people and go up to talk to people. Everyone's so reachable here, politicians included. Easy to take for granted if you don't leave the state too often, or for whatever reason. It's just easy to take for granted. And I think we should all appreciate just how nice and just polite and friendly the average person is in Wyoming. I think I was constantly reminded of that pretty much almost every day on the job. They're also blunt. People are blunt in Wyoming, and they'll tell you when you screw up, and I think that's for the best. It's sometimes hard to take, for sure, and you got to have a thick skin, but that's kind of goes for anywhere in journalism. And I think I really feel like I developed a lot thanks to being given this opportunity at Cowboy State Daily. And if I ever go back to journalism, I will always be thankful of the experience I had here, without a doubt.
We'll take you back any day, Leo. Any day. Leo, thank you for your years, and we would just wish you the best.
And that's today's news. For a deeper dive into the people and issues that affect Wyoming, check out The Roundup, conversations with the most interesting people in the Cowboy State. This week, my guest is Rebecca West, the Executive Director of the Buffalo Bills Center of the West in Cody. You can find the link on our website, on our YouTube channel, and wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you'll find it in our free daily email newsletter. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.